Well, joining us in the studio is the publicity chief, June 12 movement, Japhet Odesanya. Happy Democracy Day. Thank you for joining us.
And happy June 12.
Happy Democracy Day. Good morning.
Good morning. Now, you were part of the June 12 struggle.
Yeah.
Relive your experiences with us and how significant those experiences have been at shaping our democracy.
Thank you. Let me thank the TVC, honestly.
Thank you.
For the brilliant documentary just shown.
Thank you.
And let me also note that we must appreciate certain characters for their doggedness, resilience, and consistency. Otherwise, we will not be here. It was only in Lagos that it started. Tinubu started it. That there must be public holiday on June 12th because it was part of the struggle. So we must thank Asiwaju Tinubu. We must appreciate President Muhammadu Buhari extensively. When Albert Einstein was asked what should be the core and the emphasis of education of any nation, he said, there must be extensive discussion of people, men and women, who benefited mankind through independence of character and judgment. And we must appreciate Buhari in that light. June 12 signifies not just nostalgia, validity. It represents sovereignty. It represents unity. Beautiful unity in diversity of Nigeria. And the fact that the Nigerian people hold in high esteem their nation. But it was torpedoed. So that conspiracy within the ruling class has been shattered by the national recognition given June 12. And we must appreciate Buhari for that.
All right. Joining us now to also discuss this is the Secretary, Joint Action Front, Abiodun. Good morning. It's really nice to see you.
Good to see you.
Happy Democracy
Day.
Happy Democracy Day.
Yeah, in a way, Democracy Day.
Oh, in a way?
Yeah, I say in a way, Democracy Day.
Why is it in a way?
Yeah, you see, 26 years in the life of a people, of a person, a life of struggle, is like a quarter of a century. So when you talk democracy, it makes more meaning when you relate it to the practical reality of life.
Okay.
You see, because how do the woman who sell body thinks about Democracy Day?
Okay, I see what that means and where you're coming from now. But let's narrow it down to the significance of what we are celebrating today as a nation, especially in our political journey. You have been in the struggle. What really makes June 12 thick and unique from your perspective?
Yeah, let me say for the current generation, I said 26 years. 1993 to now, it's 26 years. But what became known as June 12 was at a point a culmination of a phase of a struggle in our own country. And that is why when I talk to those who are not born before then, or those who are in their, just their teen before then, you see, the first thing I ask them, you need to listen to four last records. Authority stealing, army arrangement, suffering and smiling, and sorrow, tears, and blood. It's important to understand where we are coming from. Because when you talk about the June 12 annulment, it was not the first annulment of the desires of Nigeria. There was an event that took place in 1986. Some of us were in the student movement. It was a political debate on what should be the future directions of this country. And the political debate, overwhelmingly, by Nigerians, because these are political debates set up by Babangida regime itself, the same one and all the June 12. You see, and overwhelmingly, Nigerians decided, you get it, for a system. You get it, it was clear. The political debate report said Nigeria is for socialism. But what socialism means to Nigeria is a just system where the collective interests of the people, you see, determines the control of the economy. as opposed to what you have later did, privatizations and everything. It's historical in the history of this country. Open political debate to determine that.
But the political system was not adopted eventually.
No, this is where I'm coming. Because you see, if you don't understand that,
right,
we cannot get to where we are going. You know, when a child falls, he looks at the front. You get it? I'm talking of a major landmark event in the history of this country. You see? It's following the annulment. Because that was the first major annulment of the aspirations of the people. Yeah. So once you have that annulment, that was what brought about the introduction of social adjustment program.
Right. Now, speaking about the annulment, I come to you, Japhet. At the time, that election was adjudged the freest, the fairest election so far. But then the context for which it was annulled, has that been really understood? Because when you look at the report we just played, the then military ruler said that there were electoral malpractices.
The same jackboot symbol, Babangida, who said it was a free, universally acclaimed free, fair election, again said there were malpractices, electoral malpractices. Then you begin to wonder what is this contradiction all about. So it was a conspiracy, it was a gang up of the ruling class against the people, the popular will, the general will. And the people proved to them that to them belonged sovereignty.
So that brought about the rise of the various crises, political crises.
That led to serious resistance, civil disobedience, unprecedented. And that is where we still are. We must appreciate that, because when politics is not liberalized with the context of history, it becomes vulgar. Then when you have history that is not linked properly to politics, then it becomes mere literature.
Has that history been linked properly to our present?
It has been linked.
The players like you now, have you been able to ensure that there is a link between our past and the present?
The link has been established.
With this.
But we must go further. The system must go further. The government must go further in helping, especially those who were not born there, to understand the concept. Because the concept is a spiritual concept.
Really?
It was a verdict of the Nigerian people. It was a referendum. And that is not surpassable. It is not beatable. It is unput-downable. And that's why we are here.
All right. It's good to understand. Excuse me. It's good to understand the fact that when you say it is a spiritual arrangement, I believe that touches the DNA of a country.
Honestly.
Very central.
Honestly.
All right. It's something we have to look at. Now, let me come back to you, Abiodun. The point there is, June 12 has become a phenomenon in the political history of our country. It has become a popular issue, whether some people believe in it or not. But here we are today. When it comes to the June 12 and the political future of this country, what do you think June 12, how do you think June 12 should mean and rest with Nigerians?
Yeah, you see, that's the point. You see, if you don't understand the background of a problem, it's like we are trying to solve a mathematical equations, and you are just talking the answers.
Without the formula.
Without the formula. Right. And that's why I'm saying that there was first, you see, a debate. You get it? Because, you know, if you have a military rule, and the point, because military rule terminated the civilian process of between 79 and 83. Like you are talking democracy in Nigeria. And you don't want to talk about 1960, just hold on. You don't want to talk about 1960 to 66. You don't want to talk about 79 to 83. You get it? And you say you have just begun in 1999. There's a problem. You cannot determine your future if you don't understand your problem. That's first thing. I told you June 12 wasn't the first annulment. For you to understand what that annulment, you see, people look at June 12, maybe first from the symbolism of Abiola. You get it? But it goes beyond that.
Yeah,
even in times of the June 12 struggle, what defines
it draws our attention to the many things some analysts would say military, the many bad things military has done to our political history. But the point there is, in linking where we are and moving forward, is there a link between, what's the link between what happened in 1986 and what happened in 1993?
That is the point I'm saying, that It was shortly after that. Well, part of the problem you are grappling with today is the effect of the structural adjustment program, which is called the SAP. SAP was introduced following the annulment of that popular wishes of Nigeria. But despite that, there are the struggles. You will have heard about anti-SAP revolt, which produced several generations of other activities you can be talking about June 12 today. You get it and go. I'm not a product of June 12. June 12 was only a phase in our own struggle. You get it? See, there are people today who say they're a product of June 12. Just the same way they're a product of January 2012 uprising. Because that was their first phase of participating in the struggle.
All right. So we, due to time, we have to leave that here now so that we will ponder over this and the Nigerians will understand better what all of these things mean to our political development and evolution. Thank you very much, Abiola and Remu, for coming on the program.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you very
And
much.
thank you, Japhet Odesanya, for coming.
Thank you. Let's start with you, Japhet. A lot of presidents and heads of government from all over the world are coming to Nigeria. How central is this June 12 celebration this year? The invitation has been sent to about over 100 presidents, and a lot of them are sending in their delegates.
Yeah, I think it's a positive signal, in terms of international diplomacy. It reflects that the country is thinking, the country is entrenching its historicity, particularly of the June 12. And not only that Nigeria seems to be more serious, at least in yielding to the popular will, the popular thinking of the majority of the people. That sends a very good signal. And like you had George Weah, the president of Liberia, that the biggest country in Africa is celebrating or setting aside a day for democracy. And in the true sense of democracy, not the, overloaded democracy day of Abubakar and Babangida or the Abacha, but the democracy day, the day that we really, truly exhibited that we are democratic
from the people themselves.
And to entrench democratic culture. We have started with this.
So what message does this send to other African countries where it seems like democracy is quite a challenge?
Yeah, let me say for one thing that I hope beyond the politics, the policy is right in terms of Nigerian rules, particularly the context of Africa being at the center of its politics. Yeah. Two people are here, two presidents or representative of presidents are here. President of the Sahrawi Democratic Republic and Deputy President of Venezuela. You see, it's significant for their presence because part of the crisis of our economy is that you are dependent on some foreign interest. Western Sahara is the last colony in Africa. And it shows a demonstration of commitment. And I think that Nigeria have to demonstrate that commitment. Like Nkrumah has said, once any part of Africa is not free, we are not free. Because part of the problem of independence is that you control your economy. You see, you have Venezuela. Because the pictures of Venezuela is what people see from the U.S. aggressions in Venezuela. So for Venezuela to be here, because we have democratic elections in which the model of democracy in the world is sponsoring a coup there. So on the Nigerian Democracy Day, for me, it's significant for that. But it goes beyond that. You see, for Nigeria to assert its commitment in terms of solidarity, you see, with those two countries, to play that leadership role, you see, in that, because some of these things will not make money, but if you are doing that, it also opens you. Because remember in this country, Chavez, example in Venezuela, became a shining light in terms of what we should make of our oil resources. You see? So what it portends, you see, because in the context of democracy, even linking with Abiola, they say you want to ban poverty. You cannot ban poverty when you have economy, that is dependent on IMF and World Bank. You have economy that is tied to privatization and deregulation. So that's the link.
All right. So the point there is the idea is being independent.
Yeah, it's being independent.
Independent. So you take your own destiny in your own
Yeah,
hands.
into your own hands. So if you realize you can bring those leaders for point of celebrations, you get it must reflect. You get it now. It must reflect. It must show. And you can tie the government to that. Because following from this, you see, when our argument said come, there's no reason why we must import refined fuel. It means you control your own productive resources.
Okay, Abiodun, that's quite spot on. He mentioned the issue of Venezuela and Western Sahara. These are, especially for Western Sahara, that Nigeria stands to support their total independence and all of that. Now, when it comes to the issue of restructuring, this is still another word that it's emanating from people, and you can hear the voices here and there. Would you see the New Democracy Day as political restructuring that is starting?
Yes, thank you. In a way, and I will only pray that the present administration, apart from shattering the conspiracy, I said it last year that I sense an intra-gang war, and Buhari has come to dare the class that he belonged. The class that annulled June 12th, the class that ruled Nigeria militarily, authoritarianly, for years, for decades. That same class has produced one of his own to acknowledge and recognize that truly democracy ought to be about the people. Now a step further will be that we must go the whole hog in restructuring totally. I have had the president say, let the local government control their funds, their resources, let them take it directly. It's part of it. We are getting there. And whether the system likes or not, the system will push itself. It's an internal issue. To the point that you also must realize that we need state policing, community policing. Part of the beauty of democracy is that it will get it right, but it's always very slow.
Especially at the initial stage.
Especially at the initial stage, and especially where you have mass illiteracy. Because the bedrock of democracy ordinarily ought to be participatoriness. And what will inform the participatoriness is education. The level of information that the citizenry have. That is the power, information. But where they lack it, it appears like democracy is even wrong. So I am appealing so that Nigerians don't wake up someday to appreciate an introduction of any coup. We must say enough is enough. Never again shall we have military rule. But to say that will mean that you must have banished poverty that Abiola represents. Right. And it came out for. That truly, Nigeria was in a state of hopelessness in 1993. There was no hope. The man came out with the slogan of hope, and he was welcome. They were tired of
I remember one of his statements saying that he looks forward to a Nigeria where no one will go to bed hungry.
Yes, without food.
All right, let's come to you now on this issue. You talked about Nigeria owning its resources, not importing fuel and all of that. At the root of that, is restructuring at the root of that, or where do we begin when we talk about owning that which is ours?
Yeah, you see, restructuring is also another term for oppression and deception.
Why?
Because restructuring who and who are restructuring? You see, the central question in this country, because if we are talking of restructuring, those who are championing restructuring, you ask the same, who are they even representing? It's important. If you are talking of real restructuring in this country, it's between the rich class and the poor class. Because, let me give you an example of what's happened 79 to 83. 79 to 83, you have what we call the Lobo state.
Okay.
Which is now 8 states. Yeah.
I'm afraid we don't have time.
We don't have the time. But what I'm bringing out is that, within the context of Lobo state, Lagos to the Asaba Bridge you have a party with a clear program that are uniform.
Quickly.
You get it now. So ethnically, you have Igbo, you have all those same ethnic groups in that same place. Okay. You see, and polity, you get it, was directed at the people in terms of education, in terms of health, in terms of housing, and so for that.
Okay. Abiodun Aremu, thank you so much. So much, to be talked about. Thank you very much for coming on the program. And
Japhet Odesoye, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
On the program.
Thank you. June 12 movement, Japhet Odesoye. Japhet, it's nice to see you.
Welcome.
Great.
And also in the studio is the Secretary, Joint Action Front, Abiodun Aremu. Thank you for joining us.
It's nice to be with you.
Thank you. All right, and also on Skype right now is son of the late Chief MKO Abiola, Abdulmumuni Abiola. Abdulmumuni, it's good to have you join us this morning. Happy Democracy Day and happy June 12th.
Happy Democracy Day to you.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
Let me begin with you, actually. It's a day, the build up to today has been very phenomenal in the minds of Nigerians and those who really believe in June 12. We were discussing earlier about the issue of those who believed in MKO Abiola as an icon of democracy and those who actually were there because of the interest that they had, which led to some people betraying him one way or the other from the statements and reports we got from here and there. You are a member of the family. Can you share what the experience is with us?
Well, alhamdulillah, first of all, I would say that it's just not naturally human nature to have interest. It's just not naturally human nature to have interest. So I think my father knew that some of these people who came to meet with him during that time were also meeting with the military regime. But at the same time, it still didn't make a difference to him. They were still Nigerians. So I think the most important thing is not to look at those that betrayed him, because I don't think it was even a betrayal to Abiola. It was a betrayal to the Nigerian people. So we shouldn't make it about one person. Abiola was at the forefront, but there were so many people behind him. So I believe that it was just how it was going to be, and I'm just so happy that now today we're celebrating June 12 for the first time as Democracy Day, and I believe that this can become the beginning of the new Nigeria.
All right, I'll take it up from there, Abdulmumuni. This is the struggle that your father tried to champion in 1993. What lessons from that struggle, and his mandate was Hope 93, that was what he spoke about at the time. What would you want this government to do beyond the celebrations that would reflect what your father hoped for Nigerians?
I believe the conversation is already being had. People are already talking about some of those ideas that my father came up with in his manifesto. I think these things are still with us in our society today, even in a higher magnitude. So I believe if we can revisit some of these things, we can try to, if we can revisit some of this, some of the things he tried to do. I think it was talking about poverty eradication, free education, and free healthcare. I think these are important things that we can, as steps we can take. But I believe the conversation is already being had. I've been watching the news lately, and I've been seeing people having conversations along the lines of, bringing up, rekindling the spirit of the Nigerian people. And once that spirit is rekindled, I'm just amazed at what Nigeria could be. So I'm excited about the way the conversation is directed now. People are looking for solutions and not really looking at the problem. And I think that's where we should be thinking and how we should be thinking in Nigeria in the 21st century.
Okay, Abdulmumuni Abiola, thank you very much for lending a voice on this. And we wish you well in your thoughts for Nigeria. All right, let's come to the studio now. Abiola, let me start with you on this. You have been a part of the struggle even before June 12, 1993. And particularly when it comes to from June 1993, which in fact you were laying a foundation earlier, there was a build up to it, and then up until now. How involved were you in all of these struggle?
Yeah, I was a product of struggle from the student movement. And our struggle has two clear perspectives. One, there's what we call struggles of class interests. Right. That is the interest of the working people, the interest of the poor. The second one was what we call the struggle of what we call anti-imperialist struggle. That is anti-foreign control of our economy and politics. That's why when you learn that Nigeria is involved in the struggle for the freedom of the Southern African people, that was the level at which we are involved. Because there's a way in which this relates to your economy. You see, it relates to your education, it relates to every interest that you have. So when we saw those things coming, because by 89, you see, we have what we call the anti-SAP. That is the alternative to SAP. You see that you cannot have this tightening-based economy. And you hear that Fela sang that, austerity measures. Those are things that I refer the young ones to study. Then you have parties. When there was the lifting of ban on politics, having rejected the political directions of Nigeria, Babangida came up with parties. And the parties, 13 associations, were proposed for registration. That was done by the National Electoral Commission under the leadership of Professor MKO. But Babangida banned those associations and set up 2 party structures. You see, but something significantly was going on then. Because some of us were in the Pan-African Youth Movement. And that was the time Abiola too himself was in the reparation. You see, our eyes was opened in the debate, which was not national. Okay. Right. And that was what led to, because it's important, because what we have as an arrangement of diarchy was led to the annulment of June 12. Right. We can speak more of that later.
Okay, let's get to Japhet now. You were also part of the struggle. Some persons are not alive today, you know, to relive the experiences and the role they played, but would like to hear yours as well.
Yeah. Thank you. We are of the younger leadership from Abiodun, and we are products of June 12. And during June 12, I was barely 19 years. And I finished secondary school in 1992. So in 1993, I started the struggle. We were involved. Now, I lost a first blood cousin, just right by my side. He was shot at the Ikorodu roundabout. Shot in the head. That very day, 10 people died in Ikorodu alone. Don't mention those that died on the streets of Ikorodu Road, Onepanu. Abacha unleashed terror. So we have that.
What triggered your interest in the struggle?
The interest was
as young as you were?
The interest was that we were well informed, and that is the role of education in any democracy. I say it consistently that at a point in Europe, illiterates were barred from playing politics. You cannot be part of it. How can you vote? Do you understand the issues? And you see, the pain that I feel is the point at which we ought to be now, or we will have been, given the political sophistication that was entrenched by the military jackpot, headed by IPP, Babangida. The political sophistication, the debate level, the national discourse, that standard, if it had stayed today, we would have represented or replicated the best democracy.
But there were some of you who were part of the struggle who knew about all of those debates and, were part of those debates.
Yes.
What happened after, the struggle and the introduction of democracy? Why wasn't that brought up again?
No, there hasn't been democracy in the true sense of it.
Now?
Civil rule, at best. We are graduating because of the colossal damage, that truncation of the general will, of the sovereignty of Nigeria itself has dragged us back. So we're trying to come up again. So we're still like a
after
toddler.
20 years?
Yes, we're still like a toddler because we still cannot even sit down and discuss our prospects as a people or peoples, as a nationhood. So that is saddening. And it is on the strength of that I want to appeal to the present administration that we must go a step further to inculcate the spirit of June 12 even to the curriculum of Nigerian education system first. And not only that, we must entrench constitutional democracy. President Muhammad Buhari must help this generation to hand over the prospects hijacked, squandered by his own generation, to hand it over to this present generation.
Okay.
It will be very interesting.
All right, Abiola, let me bring it to you here. When you put Nigeria on the platform, a lot of people, especially when you're talking about democracy, pro-democracy groups, whether pro-NACO, NADECO, all of those who at one point or the other were championing democracy, not all Nigerians see things from the same perspective, especially when it comes to the issue of June 12th and all of that. Some people feel it is a Southwestern issue, Southwestern affair, and not us and all. Do you think we've come to that threshold where Nigerians can sit down and discuss based on the sophistication that Japhet is even talking about?
You see, you must have a history. And that's unfortunately, you have history banned even in our national syllabus, in the curriculum. Because you see, if you don't have this, you can't understand it. Because for instance now, if you are looking at June 12th, and you are asking people, you know about option A. Option A8, before option A4. You get, it's important. Because option A4, you know, I mentioned something, that we are in the Pan-Africanist movement. And we saw clearly, if you look at the literatures, the campaign for democracy, which we later formed in 1991, was opposed to the Babangida transition. Right from promotion of campaign for democracy, it was clear that Babangida was not going to hand over. 2, from the Pan-Africanist movement, what is at play? You know, it's a grand deception of the whole country, put into deception, was what we call Darky. And I challenge them to come up with it. Darky is that you have a military president and a civilian prime minister. That was the whole agenda of Babangida. He first implemented it at the state level. You know, the things were in phases.
Yes.
Governorship elections were also postponed.
Yes.
You get it? You know, you have military governor, you have civilian, this thing and co. That was the Darky experiment. It's a whole joke on the people. So when Babangida was now talking about election of people and perfect, it was to be an arrangement of say, come, with this as it is, having one popular vote, be my prime minister. That is the old joke about it. But these are intellectual things that took place. You see, we must refer, you see, the first Nigerian secretary to Nigeria, the first Nigerian secretary to the Baulewa government, Mr. S.O. Way of blessed memory, were those who put some of us into this perspective as far back as 1990.
All right.
That a Darky arrangement was being played in Nigeria. And that's what happened.
But the sophistication among Nigerians that time did not allow it.
Yeah. You see, because it was not a problem. So why I raise it is that how come, and that's the question people must ask.
Okay.
That the organizations that never believed that Babangida will hand over were the same organization that rallied Nigerians on this June 12th thing.
Okay.
We'll get to that.
Well, it's okay. You know, there's just so much about June 12th, so much about Nigerian history.
Inexhaustible.
So inexhaustible and all of that. But generally, you were talking about the issue of sophistication in engagement and discussion. And I think that is the direction that our democracy in Nigeria should
begin
head
to.
Yeah. Thank you very much for coming. Abiola Aremu, thank you very much for coming on the program.
And thank you, Japhet Odesanya, for coming.